Hello, and you are very welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast, brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'm your host, Sarah Travers, and throughout the series I'm speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. So today I am joined by Cormac Venney, founder of Hip Psychology. Cormac, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me, Sarah.
Oh, you're welcome. I can't wait to hear your story. But before we begin, I'm going to give a little bit of background on Cormac and his company. So Hip Psychology was founded in 2016 by Cormac and specialises on focusing on areas of performance and well-being. So after studying sports science undergrad and completing a master's in sports psychology, Cormac was a sports coach for Sport NI from 2010 to 2016. Here he saw firsthand the need to support young people with their mindset and resilience. He gained ideas to form a business after spending some time in America, visiting various places that specialised in psychology and mindset. Cormac's passion for helping others eventually developed into a business, and Hip Psychology was born. So Hip Psychology initially focused on sport, working across numerous sports and numerous levels, and working with Ulster Rugby Academy until the end of 2020. Today, Hip Psychology mainly focuses on working with schools. And since 2017, Hip has supported over 300 school communities. Making a difference to the future of society is what drives Cormac's business. Hip Psychology also delivers keynote speeches in corporate settings and has supported businesses in the areas of mindset and resilience. So Cormac, quite a journey really to get to where you are today, sitting across from me in the Public Eye podcast studio. But tell us a little bit more about yourself and where you're from and how you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up in Dundrum, County Down, really happy childhood. I actually grew up in a house with 4 adults and no children, so I'm an only child. And I lived with my mum and dad, but also my granny and granda.
Oh my!
Lived in the same house. So my granny, I would have been really close to my granny growing up till I was about 15, until she obviously passed away then. But even looking back on that, just I suppose the knowledge and wisdom you were getting imparted on you there without realising at the time as a child. Like even Granny would have always been saying to me, like, you know, about be grateful for what you have. And when you actually look at it now, what psychology literature is saying is that idea of gratitude in relation to resilience. People are now, making money on gratitude journals. You're seeing influencers on social media talking about this. And I'm pretty sure my granny didn't read any psychology research papers, but just that wisdom from life sort of was imparted upon me. Very close to mum and dad as well. So at a happy childhood, GAA would have been immersed within me. Even by the time, looking back on it now, by the time I was 11, I had experienced, the sense of sheer euphoria, and also then, a big setback. So in P6, we won a county title, and I scored the winning point, and it was insane. There was like a pitch invasion. We got a bus tour around the village. We were like local celebrities.
Yeah.
So you had that. Then the following year, I was captain of that team, and we didn't even get out of the quarter-final stage. So I suppose I'm making that point in the fact that my childhood, I think, set me up for what life's about. That idea of working hard to achieve things, but also that things don't always go your way, and how I've been bouncing back from things like that. So yeah, I had a pretty happy childhood growing up in Dundrum, and I think that set me up for what was to come in life.
And more, I think we're looking to the world of sport to help us cope with setbacks and challenges. And you had that from a really early age, and you can remember the euphoria of the win in P6, but also the feeling like the frustration when it didn't happen the following year. Is that what you bring now to your business?
Yeah, I suppose to an extent, yeah. I've got that understanding of those different emotions through sport, and I suppose then I had a background as well in sports psychology. So yeah, like I think that's probably what inspired me to become a sports coach in the first place. So yeah, I think there definitely is a connection between, you know, how I grew up, the experiences I had growing up, and where I am now.
And tell me about the time in America, because that obviously had a big impact on you.
Oh yeah. So I suppose I was at a stage where I was coaching. I was kind of frustrated because I was seeing traits in children that I would have seen probably as maladaptive maybe. So maybe, for example, if things weren't going their way, there was a tendency for some children maybe to give up, or to be very critical with themselves. You know, their self-talk would have been negative, their body language, maybe how they were communicating with their teammates. And I sort of, at that stage, I was thinking, and even come exam time, you would have seen a change in behaviour in children as well. So at that time, I was thinking, right, there's something here that can help these children. I had a background in sports psychology as well, but I knew there was something there that could be helping them, but I didn't quite know what it was. So I took an unpaid leave of absence from my job with Sport NI to go over to the States and just see what they're doing out there. So I spent time in 3 very different but amazing locations in Florida, South Carolina and California. Gosh. So both 2 of them were particularly amazing. IMG in Florida, which it's unbelievable. It's a sports complex, but it's bigger than Dundrum. Basically, it's incredible. Like they would specialise in tennis. So you had Serena Williams come through there as a child, Pete Sampras. There's a wall of champions up. I was on my social media actually. It's incredible that the people have come through this as youths, but they had 16 mental conditioning coaches alone working within this program. Hold
on a minute. 16 mental conditioning coaches.
Yeah.
I don't even know what one mental conditioning coach would do, but how does that work?
So for that summer, what happens is there's children come and stay and get training across. There's lacrosse, basketball, American football, like a range of sports. So there's specialists they're basically like full-time athletes for say 2 to 3 weeks, and they get the experience, the coaching, and the expertise of these full-time athletes, or this full-time sort of environment. So I was able to, sit in and observe how this was happening. So the IMG, I learned a lot in terms of the mental conditioning coaches would have delivered like sort of workshop-based things with the pupils, so that they talked around the concept, and America was slick, edutainment. So we educate, give them strategies, but we entertain. So it's how you tell the story, how you explain these things, fun. And that's the concept that hip psychology sort of delivers within schools as well. We try to educate pupils, but we try to give them practical strategies that can improve life or improve whatever area we're working on, but it has to be delivered in a fun format. So I was there, and then I spent a week in hanging out basically with the postgrads in a university complex, and for a week of their placement they were spent a week in, and I got to observe this as well, which was amazing, in a correctional facility. So it was delivering life skills to young people who were, I suppose, how would you put it, they've just maybe took the wrong track in life. So that for me was an incredible experience.
So this was actually in a prison setting?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would imagine that those American prisons are tough.
Yeah. But it was a youth correctional facility, so it was particularly hard to see because you'd maybe 13 and 14-year-old, 15-year-old children in this. And, it's probably, they're there as probably more as a default or a byproduct of just the environment they've grown up in.
And was it making a difference to actually start exploring their mindset and their resilience? Did you see impact from what was happening?
So the story behind this was that it was done over a week, so Monday to Friday. And Friday they finished with like a whole team-based day. So the young, I suppose offenders is the word. They got released particularly if they were getting released, it was every Thursday. So there was one young fella who he put off his release by a full week so he could stay to take part in the event on the Friday. So that for me was
said it all. So you learned an awful lot there, and you came back. You came back home. You'd been working as a coach in Northern Ireland before. So how did that compare with what was taking place in Northern Ireland at the time?
What they were doing out there, it was a different setting from what I was doing. So my coaching was active communities coach. So a lot of my work would have been with special needs, girls and over 50, so it was underrepresented areas of sport that our programme was tapping into. So it kind of was very different from what was out there. I would have been doing a lot of work in primary schools as well, and that's kind of where I was seeing the main frustrations in terms of what inspired me to go out to the States. But yeah, it was 2 different worlds, 2 different environments.
And what did you do with that knowledge then that you brought back?
Started HIP.
Yeah.
Started HIP.
So why
psychology.
HIP? Where did the name come from?
Well, it's originally helping improve performance. So at the core, what motivates me is helping others. But there was a teacher in one of the schools we delivered was like, yeah, that's a HIP approach you have there. And I was like, oh yeah. But it was kind of like a.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Hip, cool and trendy.
Yeah. But no, that's not the concept behind that. But psychology's in there because what we deliver is on the psychology of learning, well-being, behaviour, performance. So, and everything we do is evidence based. I've got that educational background. So I think it's important that what we deliver is it's of sound sort of research based and whatnot.
Well, obviously there's a real need for what you're doing. I'm just wondering then about the business models, given that this is primarily a business podcast.
Yeah.
So, you've supported over 300 school communities. Yeah. We said that in the introduction. But how do you get into schools in the first place? How does it happen, and how do you deliver what you do?
So initially it was difficult. Absolutely, it was tough.
Was it just you starting out?
Yeah, it was just me. Yeah. Though I had a bit of a safety net for the first couple of years because the role with Ulster Rugby was relatively big. I was doing a wee bit with Down GAA and did bits and pieces with other sports places. Now that in itself and alone wasn't enough to earn a living. Never mind start a business, but it gave you a safety net, something there. And then you're at a time where you could have been working on things. So I suppose I would have initially. It would have been cold calling, which was...
I know.
Calling.
I'm sure there are many listeners going, oh no, not the cold calls.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah.
You wanted to hear about my business. Awful.
Yeah, so there was that. And then I randomly went to a principal conference one year. And it was, I suppose, a few months in the original, the journey of HIP. And the guy that was doing the keynote, I got chatting to him and he asked, would you open for me the next day? So, no, it was in the morning of it actually. He asked, will you open for me here?
You had no idea this was going to happen?
No idea, no.
So you'd just gone along to
as an exhibitor?
As an exhibitor, great.
Yeah, so I was trying to sell him a business. I got chatting to him. He was doing something around maybe CBT, or I can't remember specifically what, Sarah, but he asked me to get up and my heart was absolute. But I was like, I have to do this.
This was the best opportunity.
Yeah,
this was it.
Yeah.
And you have a captive audience of all the principals in Northern Ireland.
Well, no, it wasn't all the principals in Northern Ireland. It was a Lisburn principal area, but there was probably about 100 principals there. So it was a big room.
That's pretty good. So tell me how did that go?
It went well. Well, it went fairly well. I think he had been, to be honest, he had been struggling. So as the initial speaker, so I think he wanted to freshen it up,
to do something just to get people thinking.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
So I can't even. I think I spoke about being in the present, and even the day ahead, about having a specific goal of what excellence will look like by today. I can't even remember, Sarah, what I spoke on, but I got through it anyway. But
good for you for you took that opportunity and you seized the moment, seized the day.
You have to lean into that fear sometimes.
Look, that's a great life lesson, I think, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But so what happened after that?
Well, we got a few sales out of it from that. And then get into them schools, word of mouth. It's a small region, good news travels fast. If you're doing well, that word of mouth, and it just generated traction from that.
Yeah.
So I suppose to me the big thing is going in and doing a good job. Mm-hmm. That's...
And obviously with school budgets so tight, that's one thing to consider, but also I'm sure many principals are so aware of the mental health problems and the societal problems that are out there at the minute, and you can bring a solution. So tell us what you actually do when you go into a school. How does it work? Is it a one-off, or do you do a programme?
It just depends on what the school wants. So we've got, for primary school, we would have 6 sort of main workshops we deliver. So it's kind of seasonal. So if we take it from the start of the year, so September and October, we generally have a workshop around excelling with pressure. So that's giving pupils psychological skills to help them deal with just different pressures in life. So that's primarily delivered. It's delivered around September and August time, because that's when the transfer test is. But it's not a transfer workshop. So it's looking at all different pressures the pupils be facing, but it's just popular at that time of the year, as you can imagine.
But you can't say there's pressure at that time of the year to pretend that it's just all coincided.
Well, no, it is. Even if you think around it, like there's pupils there that'll be playing in football finals, there'll be pupils that'll be having to get up and do public speaking, there'll be pupils that are doing music tests. So it is transferable across all.
Transferable to adults as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm wanting to hear more. So excelling with pressure.
November is anti-bullying month, so with an anti-bullying workshop. So originally that was in school, but post-COVID, with the whole shift in cultural shift in terms of like the normalisation of things online, we moved that online. So that was a massive success, because 2019 we would have been working with 350 children across that week. We moved it online, where there's multiple schools can join simultaneously. So that number, the impact of working with 350 children, post-COVID, we're now working with about 5,000 children that week. So
that's incredible. So COVID again brought benefits to the business. Yeah,
well, there's a friend of mine who's really, really successful businessman, and I was chatting to him around COVID time, and it was a bit, you were down and things were tough. And I always remember a line he said. It was something along the lines of, crisis will create opportunities for those who can adapt. And I just thought,
bingo.
That just uplifted me. So, and that came to be true there as well. So
and mental health became such a focus as well, because young people were really struggling. I often think, young people and the older population, they were the two that really missed out in their childhood and missed out in those valuable later years.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there's still, even now, there's still a fallout from the legacy of that.
Absolutely. Are you seeing that in the kids?
Yeah, we ran over Children's Mental Health Week, which was back in February there. Again, we put out in November time surveys to staff, to teachers, around what area do you feel you would like children to be supported with, and the big thing came up was anxiety. So that was the initial point. We then put a further follow survey up, asking, right, what specific, like what are you seeing in the children? So a big thing was post-COVID. So from that, we went about putting together a bespoke workshop we hadn't got in place yet around tackling anxiety. So we then ran that over Children's Mental Health Week, again online, and again we got, we were able to impact around 4,500 children from that. So I suppose anxiety would have been a big thing that's coming post-COVID within our children. So
you have excelling with pressure, anti-bullying, anxiety. What other workshops?
Primary 7 transitions.
Okay.
So that's
changing schools.
Change and challenge, basically.
Change
and challenge. What else do I have? That's a good question. We've got resilience, so that's enhancing resilience, and then we've 3 pillars of growth. So that's growing through setbacks, growing emotionally, growing together.
Gosh, the resilience, I want to sign up for all of these.
Our resilience looks at 3 concepts. Hunt the good, which is a concept we took from the US military. Again, we would have learned a lot about what's going on out in the States. So the US military are actually the biggest investors of resilience training across any organisation in the world.
Right.
So we took that concept from that. That's just the idea of trying to create optimism on a daily basis.
This podcast is sponsored by Granite Legal Services, a niche business and immigration law practice located in the heart of Newry City. Granite Legal Services provides legal advice to both individuals and companies alike across a wide range of industries, from employment, commercial or corporate law matters to immigration law. Granite Legal Services focuses on providing legally sound, practical advice to its clients. To get in touch, visit www.granitelegalservices.co.uk or contact 028 3026 22 That is actually transformational. I tried that last week because somebody had said something similar. It wasn't hunt the good, but it was in every difficult situation, look for good.
Yeah.
And that really works. You won't think it until you try it, and you have to try it, don't you? You literally can't remember in a crisis to do that necessarily. Every day you should start thinking, where's the good today?
We would try and create that, so we would deliver that within staff development as well. So we work with staff, but we got a WhatsApp or an email, a really nice thing after we had delivered in staff development training of a hunt the good section in one of the classrooms. So that teacher took it upon themselves every single Friday. The last thing that class did on a Friday was reflect back on the week of the good that occurred. So what you're doing is you're embedding that then as a habit, and that almost creates that culture of resilience within your classroom, where you're actively, as a teacher, trying to implement them strategies, and like that's obviously going to feed down into the children then.
That's brilliant. And they leave on a Friday afternoon not thinking about the bad thing, but about the good things. And sometimes, well, you will know this as well, we are so hardwired to just focus on the one bad thing. Yeah. And we don't maybe observe or celebrate or appreciate the good things.
It's human nature. I put feedback out from our online workshops, and you'd be getting ratings of 10, 10, 9, 10, 10, and maybe an 8, and you're like, what? You're focusing on that.
What's the 8?
So who wrote that 8? I'm going and looking at their comments. It's just I think it's human nature at times.
So
as
how
well.
do you hunt the good whenever you get an 8?
I suppose it's just trying to logically rationalise it. That person's 8 might have been another person's 10. It's just
Exactly.
it's different people view life differently.
That's it. And even the feedback from young people. I'm trying to think. Is it difficult to get a testimonial? When other people have a business and they have customers, and I think adults kind of know how to frame a testimonial, but what do the young people say? Do they know the difference that this is having on them, or is it just something they've had to go to in school?
They generally, they've had fun. That's the big thing, and they've learned simple strategies that makes a difference. We would work as well with post-primary, so right the way up till up to upper 6th. So we work from P4 to upper 6th and everything in between. Now we have a plan in place over the next 6 weeks to go down, the next 12 weeks to go down to school. We'll get that I suppose later on, but for the older pupils, probably they're able to, a bit more self-aware, to be able to reflect and make sense in, I suppose, in a, how would you put it, verbalise.
Yes, and be mature enough to actually process and even understand what does reflect mean.
Yeah. So a 10-year-old or 9-year-old tell you, we had fun, we learned new things, it was great.
Fun is the number one.
Absolutely.
But yes, are they actually going home then and applying the learning, or does it just happen?
Well, I suppose from our end, we try to embed it within in the classroom then. So it's up to, we would leave resources, we would follow up with staff, but it's all, ultimately we'll go in and set the scene and generate, what it's about, have fun with it. But then it's up to the staff to really embed those best practices within the school. So for that Children's Mental Health Week, one of the comments was from the teachers, unbelievable, great, enjoyed it. I'm in the process of creating a poster to embed that within our classroom.
Great idea. So the teachers then, you help them with ongoing things, whether it's that reflection at the end of the week or the poster, so that the momentum continues. Yeah. It's such a great idea. You keep saying we now, so how's the business now?
So
it's not the royal we any.
No. There's 2 of us presenting. So Carlos and myself. Carlos is amazing, absolutely amazing person.
Where did you find Carlos?
Carlos came over to Belfast when he was 11 from Portugal, and he didn't have a word of English. So Carlos went to St Joseph's in Ravenhill. He graduated. He went to university, and randomly the chairman of Breda GAC was having a Guinness in the Parador one evening in the Armour Road, minding my own business, and the chairman of Breda asked me, there's a guy that's doing psychology and he wants to talk to you, he's a member of our club, would you have a chat with him to see if there's anything you could do? So Carlos came on, he was second year at Coleraine, and he came on and did his placement with me. He then graduated, and as he was graduating, the business had grown to the extent where we could bring him on full time. And it's one of the best things that teachers...
He was sent to you.
Yeah, maybe.
He was sent
But the
to
children love him, absolutely love him, and he loves delivering, he loves presenting, he's so flamboyant, and you know, I try as best I can that he's out delivering, because it's what he's passionate about. It's where his strengths lie. So, you know, trying to let him at it.
And I'm sure too, having that experience of coming to Northern Ireland aged 11 with no English. So, you know, we've got a much more diverse society now, and just even being that person that's had that experience, because I think kids kind of go, yeah, all right, but you know, tell me about when you were a child. Does he do that? Does he incorporate that?
He does actually. He was telling me there, like we would go through the fundamentals of the workshop and what the workshop looks like, but he can then, like, you give him a license just to improvise, and he was telling me that he was able to relate to the children about the anxiety. He also, you'll not mind me saying, he has dyslexia as well. So in that anxiety workshop, he was delivering it to the year 8. So he went out into the schools. I was delivering it online. So he was telling me that he was giving examples of things from his life of coming over here, you know, with no English, been dyslexic. And he says there was a few children came up who had just moved over or had been, you know, from a different country, other children who had experienced that dyslexia as themselves. So he was able to connect and relate to them through personal examples. And, you know, it's not something we had discussed beforehand, before, you know, going out to deliver the workshop. We had the framework in place, but he sort of just went off left field, and it's great left field.
That's how you connect, isn't it? With your own story. Definitely. And sharing, especially for some of the things that when people see that you've been vulnerable too,
100%.
They can relate to you.
Yeah, so as well as Carlos, we've had 2 students come from the university as well that we would, who are unbelievable researchers, Victoria and Rachel. So we've been very, very lucky to team up with the universities to have those 2 join the team as well. And it adds so much more skills and expertise in addition to what Carlos and I have. So I think I have to give a shout out to them as well, Sarah.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, I keep saying I want to sign up for all of these courses, but that's what you're realising too, that the adult world out there in businesses as well can really learn from the stuff you're doing, and you've kind of broken into that area too.
To an extent, Sarah, we would do a lot of work with adults, a lot of staff development in schools, so we would do a lot of work there. I've worked with a few businesses, give a few speeches, conferences and stuff, but it's always sort of came organically. So say you've Angela, who works in PR for the Health Trust or something. Her best friend is Mary, who's a principal in a school. We've had this guy in
Northern Ireland.
Yeah, we've had this guy in. Give him a shout. So we've had quite a few businesses contact me. Some we've went in and worked with. Others it just hasn't been the right fit, and that's fine as well. But
I mean, you're in a niche at the minute, and the market's there. So I suppose you can't do everything.
Well, ultimately, I suppose I've struggled with this idea of having, like, you know, a vision, and I've wrestled with it. I think I've got to that place now. I came to this epiphany walking up Cave Hill there in January time.
As only Cave Hill can do. You know, it is so fabulous up there.
But I sort of want HIP to be at a place and where we're delivering these types of programs, the P1s and CEOs of businesses and everything in between. Now that might get there, it might take 20 years, but I just think having something to keep striving for and keep
having the goal,
having that long-term goal and aligning your actions to that. So after having that sort of thought moment, I was thinking, well, where's the shortfall, the immediate shortfall or the immediate short-term goal? So I was thinking, we've nothing in place for primary 1s and 2s. So we were getting nicely tortured from schools about this, and I was always having to say no, we're working on it. And then I was like, I'm actually paying lip service here, I need to do something about this. So we contacted a school. I met a P1 teacher through improvisation. I do improv as well. That's another story for another day. So there was I was chatting to her about it. She's like, if anything we can ever do for you, let me know. So she said that to me in September this year. So I got in touch with her about January, and like, right, how would you feel if we come in and delivered a 12-week programme? You and I put it together to your pupils. So she says, I'll have to run it by the boss, ran it by the principal. So we're going into a school now after February. We're going to run a 12-week programme with her P1s, pilot that, and then by the end of that, that'll be that'll be another strand of the business what we can offer.
So what was the need there? What were the issues in P1 and P2 that needed addressed?
Well, so I went through what we're currently doing up the school, and she's like, they are absolutely 100% all needed down the school. So it's just how that's going to be,
and how you reach them,
how you
a
reach
much
them.
younger audience, and do they even understand what's happening here?
Yeah. So the idea is that we'll work on it. She's called Catherine to deliver at week 1. We observe. We then deliver week 2 the exact same thing she's delivered. So that's kind of, they're getting it. It's just like they probably won't remember Cormac. This was only joking, but
No.
but so
We pets.
yeah. So our workshops are traditionally around 80 minutes. For that, it's going to be a 35-minute one, 40 minutes. So we're going to do some shopping soon. So we're getting puppets and all sorts of crack. Like so,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So that's been a challenge for you, hasn't
Yeah.
it? Very different to Ulster Rugby. What were
Yeah.
you doing at Ulster Rugby?
So I was delivering performance psychology support for their academy. So their academy is between leaving school and getting a senior contract. Now, a lot of them we would have been supporting. A lot of the guys there would have been playing seniors regularly, but they would still be in the academy program. Whereas you've that range right the way down to ones that are just that have just left school and are just finding their way and what it means to be a professional athlete. So you had ones that were really flourishing. You had other guys that maybe weren't going to make it. So you were having very different conversations. But primarily, I worked alongside a girl, Kelly Fay, who's now living in Dubai. Excellent sports psychologist. Learned so much from Kelly. Learned a lot from Ulster rugby environment as well. But it would have been primarily one-to-ones with players. We would have done some coach support as well. And then we would have integrated some principles in the training as well, which was fun, really, really fun. So that would have been a wee bit as well, I suppose, in terms of helping the guys set standards and culture, and I suppose creating leaders within themselves. So it was a brilliant 5 years. I absolutely loved my time there. Learned a lot there. Met some brilliant people, real good friends. Some guys now that are actually going on and representing Ireland. So, and seeing them in their journey from, just coming out of school. Even at the start, we were working with them at 5th and 6th year. So there's one player in particular I worked with from a 5th year doing his GCSEs to now. You see him, I actually see him in the Armour Road quite regularly. He lives not too far away from me, but he's living his dream as an Ulster rugby player. There's our Irish
amazing.
international.
No names. I'll not ask you to tell us, but that's incredible.
But there's other players who haven't made it, who and you have to help them redirect. And
right.
I got a phone call 2 weeks ago from a guy who didn't make it, but he's now teaching. He's now a teacher out in Dublin, and he's a PE teacher. He's going for a head of year interview. He was saying about maybe about possibly coming in to work with his students. So you just and it was lovely. That to me means as much as the guy who's flourishing.
Absolutely, it's just something that we should probably just talk about for a second, because that is huge, and there'll be many people listening to this, maybe parents, and they have a young person who's very promising, and all of the investment that goes into, you're really good at this sport, you work hard at this, and you'll get to this goal, and then you've invested all those years, all the sacrifices that you make as well, and then it doesn't happen, and that must be very common. Yeah,
so I suppose the big thing there is that it's not Peter the rugby player. They're a person before they're
they're not defined as the rugby player, and maybe that's what's been wrong. They have been.
Yeah, it can't be that sole focus of their identity, because if you think of yourself as just a rugby player, and that's then taken away from you, well, who am I then?
That I almost made it.
Yeah. So, and even at the conversations I've been having with those guys as well is like, you've invested and haven't made it, but you've still an array of desirable traits, skills built up there, like your ability to organise yourself, your understanding of being able to perform under pressure, the commitment you've invested as well, you understand what it takes. So
that has not been wasted just because you perhaps didn't make that final team, but you're a much better person for the investment.
100%, and that can be redirected into a teaching life, a corporate job, a building
Anything.
site, whatever,
Anything.
wherever you want to, whatever area you want to go on. I met one getting my hair cut in the same place. He's roofing now, but he's flying at it. It's his own business in place. So it just it's not. It is obviously you're in that environment to try and to become a professional athlete, but if you don't make it, there's you reroute, you redirect, and you go again.
I'm springing this on you because I haven't asked you for anything about this beforehand, but I'd love to know if you had any tips for anybody listening today, who struggles at times, maybe with resilience, with mindset, with mental health. Let's face it, it's something that is affecting so many people, and businesses are very concerned too with the well-being and mental health of their employees or their staff. But what would you say to people right now if they had concerns or they hadn't perhaps addressed an anxiety or a sadness?
Yes, the big thing's talking, speaking out. For me, that's the thing, and having your people around you who you can go to, your tight circle, and that was one of the messages from that anxiety workshop we did with the pupils. We looked at an exercise actually that happened, and we showed them Britain's Got Talent, where Ant and Dec paused the show for a minute for the people at home to talk. So we looked at that in the classroom as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so speaking up is a big thing, but there's things you can be doing, taking charge of the brilliant basics. I give the analogy to staff as well, and it's just how I see things, Sarah, is like life's almost like a table, and we've got I call it keeping your table stable. So we've got legs. There's three important legs for me. You've got your work leg, your professional leg, your health leg, and then triple F, which is fun, family and friends. So that's the social side. So you want to be investing time in behaviours and actions that keep each of those legs strong. So if you imagine any table, if you were to remove one of them legs, it becomes wobbly. If you take another leg away, you're in dodgy territory. So I kind of even looking at, for me, say for example your health leg, there's things you can be doing that's going to keep that strong. So movement, trying to get your sleep in, what you eat. They're the brilliant basics of mental health. The big thing is you have complete control over them as well. So that's kind of that's, I suppose.
No, that's great, and I think it's something that applies to every age, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But when you're going out and you're starting in schools, what's the most worrying thing you're seeing at the minute in schools?
Oh, good question.
Because I think I personally look at what young people, are dealing with now, and the pressures and the whole world of social media as well, living online. That connection has really gone. Thank goodness we're back out again and they can play and things like that, but it's not the same.
I suppose it's just different for different ages. Probably in the teens it is the social media and that comparison, comparing yourselves to others is, for me, is what's the saying about comparison's the thief of joy. There's a lot of merit in that, and there's a brilliant image that we would show students as part of one of our resilience workshops, the older students, where you've a picture of this lovely shiny apple, and it's in front of a mirror, and then at the back of the apple it's been, it's bitten into, but all you can see in the mirror is the shiny part of that apple.
Of course.
So, and that's the big thing to pupils as well. They're comparing themselves, so they're comparing their lives to someone else's best life.
That's it.
So if you're maybe some people feeling down, you have a tendency to scroll on social media. So you're at your worst, you're feeling down here. You're looking and thinking someone else's life is at the top of it.
They're not sharing their misery or their sadness or whatever. They're just doing the shiny bits.
The shiny bits. So they're
which aren't even necessarily real at all.
No. So that's the thing as well. It's separating real life from social media life per se.
And do you find that that's what the young people say? We've heard that so many times. Oh, look, don't believe everything you see or whatever. Do you think the young people get that now?
Yeah, I suppose to an extent. I think it's something that just has to be constantly reinforced.
And you're good enough. And the fact that everybody's different, every child is different. No two bodies are the same.
No, and it's exploring, we're sitting down and everyone is different. Where's your strengths? That idea of that. There was research done by an Australian guy, academic, and he was going into, what was it? He brought adults, 4,000 or 5,000 adults from Australia who had left school, you know, maybe 20 years, and he asked, there was 2 questions. Think of a teacher who's made a profound impact in your life. You can still remember to this day, and why are you picking that teacher? And the big thing, the overwhelming thing came back was the reason most teachers were picked was because they believed in me. They saw something in me that I didn't know I had. So that idea of helping children uncover their strengths is so important, and then giving them the opportunities to live them strengths. I just think it's just an undervalued sort of idea.
Yeah, and it's such a gift that you probably don't even realise.
Yeah.
But those good teachers, you do remember it is because they took you to the side and they saw something in you and they believed in you even when you had that doubt.
I saw a brilliant thing in a school, Crossgar, Cedar Integrated, I'm going to say, shout out to them, but it was a tree of strengths. So it was P7 class, so the teacher had like all branches which were representative of either areas of the curriculum or character strengths, or, you know, so you might have a kindness, numeracy, literacy, all different things. And when a child uncovered a strength, they put their name on, you know, on a teacher went with them, found it out, put it on a branch.
Oh, that's lovely.
But she was a genius because beside it was a help me please poster. So if another child was struggling with a particular area, they wrote their name, and then the child whose corresponding strength related to that went over and helped them. So you're creating a culture of leadership in the classroom as well, and it meant the teacher didn't have to do it.
And a culture of asking for help if you need it,
help.
and being able to give help.
100%.
Knowing that your strength can help others, not just you.
So some of the practices I'm seeing within schools are just are fantastic.
It's incredibly uplifting, and it's been very uplifting talking to you here today. It actually fills me with optimism, which is something that the world lacks at times these days. But what's next for you, Cormac, in hip psychology?
Hip psychology, what's next? Well, I mentioned the long-term plans are going deeper. Maybe I'd like to possibly get across over to England or go down south as well. So it's trying to broaden our reach. Randomly as well, I've plans to open up a glamping facility in my family space in Dundrum. So
sounds lovely too.
Yes, but that's not related to hip psychology, I guess. But yeah, so that's,
you have to have some downtime away from work too. And maybe that's a different avenue for you.
Yeah, well, I do, as I mentioned there, I do CrossFit. That keeps the health leg strong. I do improv, which is fun with friends. That keeps the triple F leg strong. I coach Dundrum under 13s, which that helps keep the health. You're reconnecting to the community. So then obviously you have your work side of things. So I mentioned that table stable analogy. It's something I'm a big believer in every single week, trying to do things that keep my table stable as such.
Well, it sounds like you're incredibly busy, so you must have to make choices and decisions to make sure that the fun and the friends, the family, and all of the sport happens.
I wouldn't be by any stretch of the imagination, and my mum will probably be listening to this, like, I'm by no way the most organised person. Like, I spend a good bit of my life chasing my tail, to be honest. But yeah, it is. I've got better at it as I've got busier. I've got better at it. And I do try to, not non-negotiables, I think that's a bit of an extreme, but try to cement certain boundaries, cement certain things in at certain times that I do them.
This is happening.
Because
for me, it has to go in the diary.
Yeah.
And then it's happening.
Yeah.
But that's amazing, because we started out with the conversation today around the wisdom that you got from your granny and being grateful. Do you feel grateful?
Yeah.
Every day?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You have to work at it.
You do have to work at it. Sometimes things don't go according to plan, and you beat yourself up, and even like I sent out that Children's Mental Health Week I was telling you, but I sent out the wrong link for one of the workshops, and I only realised at 5 to 11. So and then that evening you're beating yourself up. But then, like, I thought to myself, hold on a minute here, that's one mistake. Hip psychology has had a positive impact on 5,000 children across this week. Let's think about that.
Do that one, and everybody makes mistakes. We
we
haven't been replaced by robots yet.
No,
so
100%.
Yeah, hopefully we won't be. Now, the purpose of this podcast, Cormac, is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering an insight into the success of businesses such as hip psychology. So what advice would you give then to people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin, or are unsure as to whether the risk is worth taking?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I suppose the first thing is I'm very lucky to be, like, our business is aligning two things. It's aligning my passions and my strengths. So I suppose I'm very lucky to be living that idea of your why. So if you are passionate about something and your gut's telling you, I think, to go for it. There's an image I've seen. I don't know if you've heard of this or seen this, Sarah, but there's like a mummy bird and a baby bird in the nest, and the baby bird turns to the mummy bird and is like, oh, what if I fall? And the mummy bird turns around and says, well, what if you fly?
Yeah.
You know, so there's that element of things. And secondly, there's people out there as well that will help you. Definitely, like, everyone who's been successful in business and they've had to be that person starting out, and 99% of them will remember that. So if there's someone that you feel you need to reach out to or chat to, or who's walked the path maybe you want to walk, get in touch with them. Like, getting support. Like, I went through a program, I'll give them a shout out here actually, Ulster Bank Entrepreneur Accelerator program. So John Ferris, Matthew Teague and Gabby, there's three great coaches that were part of that, and part of that was giving you the skills, tool set and understanding of what it takes to run a business. So if you maybe don't understand, you can get yourself educated.
It's like the two trees in the classroom again.
Yeah.
I need help. This is my strength
and passion.
And
Boom.
there are people there that want to help.
Yeah. There
Perfect.
you go.
We've all come full circle.
It comes full circle, sir.
It does, Cormac. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
It's been a pleasure being on.
You know, good luck with hip psychology, and you know, you're making a real difference. You said you wanted to make a difference to the future of society. That's what drives you, and it sounds like you're doing just that. So thank you so much for joining me in the Public Eye podcast, and we'll be back again soon. Thanks for listening. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service, for our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.